Okay. Great. Good day, everybody. My name is Chris Poria. Welcome to EarlyBirds Weekly Explorer Webinar. This webinar series is run by EarlyBirds team to promote disruptive leaders, especially innovators, mostly focused on startups and scale-ups who have a minimum viable product or more. Today, our guest is a startup from Canberra called SimpleMarketing.AI. Simple Marketing helps businesses generate their marketing content in minutes rather than hours. It's revolutionary AI-driven content engine, which is a subscription-based online service generating original content, including blogs, social media posts, emails, from just some key phrases entered by yourself or by the business. Let's welcome Suzette Bailey, CEO and co-founder of SimpleMarketing.AI. Suzzette is a bioscience graduate who built a successful multi-million-dollar Australian IT company, which celebrated its 21st birthday last year as a recognized leader in delivering information and records management services to government and businesses. Despite owning a successful business selling to government, Suzzette failed when she tried to work with small businesses. She struggled to generate marketing content to attract small business customers. Therefore, she in 2020, she co-founded SimpleMarketing.AI, an AI content engine generating the regular marketing content business needs in minutes, not hours. Actually, it's interesting. I have actually tried to check this out, and even posted one of the article, which I didn't realize it was not written by me, and created a lot of interest from LinkedIn. So let's attendees, please share your questions through the chat box. In the meantime, while we talk through to Suzzette. So Suzzette, good morning and welcome to our webinar. Thank you very much for your time this morning. So maybe let's start with a little bit of your story, why you have started SimpleMarketing.AI, and little bit of story behind the company.
Fantastic. Yeah, look, you touched a little bit on it with the introduction, and thank you so much for the kind words. Look, the Simple Marketing came out of a very much a fundamental understanding of the struggles that a small business owner has and an entrepreneur has in marketing their business. As you mentioned, I'd been running a company for a long time. I was trying to transition about 6 or 7 years ago. I started trying to transition to taking what I do into the entrepreneur and small business sector, and failed and bombed miserably. In fact, I actually got quite considerably about the fact that I couldn't sell a $500 product or course, even though I was able to go in and sell a 5 or 6 figure deal to government and large end of town. For me, it was sort of like, how can I do this but not do the other one? And look, and I really didn't understand that it was actually different. Online marketing, and a lot of people now, a lot of businesses are transitioning online because of COVID specifically. And, you know, they're struggling with this whole requirement to constantly promote yourself and develop content regularly and consistently at a quality puts a huge burden on an organization, and I felt that very deeply when I was trying to do this. And so to be perfectly frank, I put the whole sort of aspect of moving online on the shelf and went back to sort of looking after the consulting business for a long time. Last year, with the advent of the release of a technology called GPT-3, so the underlying AI is not our AI. We actually have it provided by a company or an organization called OpenAI, which was set up by Elon Musk originally. When I actually saw what GPT-3 could do, and what it is what's called a natural language processing AI. In simple terms, that means it actually understands language. You could say to it, write me a blog post on X, and it will actually be able to write you on that. Depending on how you frame the question determines the quality of the article. Afterwards, like pretty much the same as us, we can have a bad day, and depending on how we frame our setting up writing an article will determine if it's a good quality one or not. The same thing with the AI, and it's been trained on the entire internet. When I saw its capability, I realized that there was an opportunity to be able to solve this issue that I had myself suffered years before, because I kept in with the community quite strongly and knew that this was an issue that was constantly affecting small businesses. And with the advent of COVID, it was only going to increase. So looking at, with my strong background in information management and understanding and how people use information, I was able to couple what I had been doing for federal government and large corporates, bring that in with this particular technology. And we brought in a couple of founders, Craig Tomler is our CMO and product development manager. And we brought in a gentleman called Aman Kawatra, who's been as our CTO, and he's been fantastic. So the three of us then got access to the AI from OpenAI, and it was a special release. For anyone who's anything to do with GPT-3, you know that you actually have to apply, and it's tightly controlled. We were the first Australian company to actually receive GPT-3. There's been a few since, or to receive access to it. And from then we developed it. One of the things, though, is that a number of our competitors, and there are a number, Copy.ai, Copysmith.ai, etc., they rush to market. One of the things that was very important to me was that I didn't want to rush to market, because to me, a minimum viable product was not just the software. It was actually being able to deliver on the promise of being able to do marketing quickly, easily, and with understanding marketing jargon and also to IT. So we found that we released a few weeks ago, we released about in early March, and the response has been fantastic. So.
No, that's great. Suzette, and thank you very much. So if I ask you a very specific question, maybe if I tell your product or your platform that, hey, I'm interested in, for example, how to be a happy person, as an example. If I put that phrase in, and I know that I put a very similar phrase, and I got a very good options, and I was looking into these different options that it has provided me. I think it was 3 or 4 options. And I was saying, wow, each of these options are unique and very different and very good. So does it look into an existing article that has been already written, or does it pick up from different articles and put it together? I just wanted to understand how it works.
It actually is neither. What it is, it's the same as if you wrote your article yourself. It is what's referred as a generative AI. It is actually generating completely unique content based on similar styles of other articles, but it is completely unique content and will actually pass all plagiarism techniques or tests, and has actually been proven to show. In fact, it's probably an issue for things like universities and schools, this type of technology, because it means that people can actually generate essays and assignments this way, and it is uniquely generated content. So yeah.
Wow, that's interesting, because that's exactly what I was thinking, that hey, I was just hesitant when I taken that article and thought, hey, this is good article, I want to publish that on one of my social media pages, but I was hesitant a little bit. I'm not sure whether this is uniquely written or not, which is great to know. So thank you very much for that. So in terms of use cases, so let's go into...
Just before you go on, I just wanted to just add something, and I meant to. One other thing, it's so unique that the actual people and the quotes that it actually creates in the article, you actually need to test, because the person and the article doesn't, sorry, the person and the quote may not actually exist, and you may have to go and find either an equivalent one from somebody who actually does exist, or you actually can attribute the quote to yourself, because the quotes are completely unique as well.
Okay. So that means it's really a unique kind of capability, and I think it's interesting because because we have been interacting with customers for a long time, and this is one of the key challenge actually with any whether it's a marketing person or a business development person or even a small business. I think this is one of the key challenge is how can I create content that I can share based on my values and based on what we are doing as a business. um, I think this is really unique and really good. So in terms of use cases, where do you see the customers using this kind of capability? Other than, of course, marketing is one. And interestingly, you mentioned universities is another unique use case.
Yeah, look, in regards to our particular platform, we are particularly focusing on marketing content. So that's a particular area that we're specializing in. But the actual underlying technology is being used in a range of areas. In fact, it can actually write development code such as Perl and JavaScript, because that is another kind of language. And is at the moment also looking, they're testing it to create actual images based on what people says, particularly what they ask as well. So look, the reality is, I'd suggest if people are interested in GPT-3, we actually run a GPT-3 Australian New Zealand meetup group to discuss a range of these sort of things, and also go and have a look online. There is absolutely amazingly innovative ways that GPT-3 is being used across a number of different sectors, and I think we're only scratching the surface at the power of this particular AI. It's definitely going to be one to watch.
Okay, great. And could you describe a little bit more about GPT-3? Because I think there will be a number of people who will be thinking, what is this GPT-3?
So GPT-3, as I mentioned, is the AI that's underlying our platform. AI these days, for people who are not aware, is really more of a commodity. So you actually can purchase a lot or obtain AI from a number of different sectors like Microsoft, AWS. In our case, it's OpenAI. So GPT-3, as I mentioned, is a natural language processing AI. And what that means is it understands language. It's literally been taught the entire, or has been trained on the entire internet, which is why it understands contextualization, it understands semantics. For example, I did a test of did a demo of our platform with somebody and we used the word corporate innovation and corporate information and corporate culture. They were the two sets. And it wrote an article around corporate diversity and diversity in corporate culture. And because it understood that diversity was a related concept to those two other terms. So it actually, like you as a human, when you actually sit down to write something about a particular topic, you think about things related to it. It's because it's been trained on a whole range of different concepts, a range of different content. It actually can write on a range of different things related to that underlying keywords. And in fact, sometimes when you put in the keywords, it may actually do something that doesn't actually even mention those keywords, but it is definitely related. Now, the other thing it also can do is it actually understands between about 100 and 150 different languages and can actually write in different languages as well. We're not, as yet, looking at, we haven't got different languages other than English in our platform, but it is absolutely something that will be coming in our roadmap, is that we will be bringing in other languages. And in fact, I was talking to someone yesterday in the UK about being able to develop content in Arabic and in Spanish as well. So there's a scope to take this technology quite a long way.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So attendees, please ask your question through the chat box if you have any questions in the meantime, while we are chatting with Suzette here. So Suzette, would you be, I remember that you mentioned you are happy to also show a little bit of the platform, how it works in action. So if you're interested, please share your screen and show us how the platform works. And then we continue chatting about some of the other areas.
Fantastic. So this is our environment. So we have a number of different things. So one of the things it was very important for us is that we actually had like our name, Simple Marketing, it had to be simple. So it had to be easy to use. and be very intuitive for the most part. So as we came in, we've got a number of different what's referred to as content types. So essentially a content type is just literally a type of content that you want to create. And we can seed in the back end different examples. So for example, this is a shared environment. And so we go with examples that would be quite broad and allow for a broader audience. But we can also create an environment specifically for a particular organization and put content types specifically that organization needs and seed it with their particular content. So it actually writes in their voice. And one thing about all of this is this is not an automation tool. This is what is a very, very effective productivity tool. You as the human are always required, and you're 100% taking ownership and responsibility for the content that you publish. So you mentioned earlier, Chris, about publishing that LinkedIn post. You ultimately are the one who still wrote it. All this did was it helped you very quickly get to that first draft. So I'll go in and I'll do a LinkedIn post. So we'll just... Now, if you wanted to give me some keywords.
Yeah, maybe I tried one actually, how to be happier at workplace.
Let's try that one. What kind of workplace? An office, a government, a small business?
Yeah, maybe government, because I think we are in Canberra, so it might be relevant.
Now, the reason why I say this is the more sort of context that you give it, it then is more likely, because ultimately this is still a generative and will create things sometimes related but not exact. At least it gives it more context that we're particularly interested in and LinkedIn post around things more government and large organization focused, as opposed to something that's a small business, for instance. So if I was writing something for a small business, I would put that in, because that would then be quite a different kind of workplace, for instance. So now one of the other things we do with this is it takes about 30 seconds for the generation, and it is actively going and creating this content live as we speak. But one of the things we notice, 30 seconds, it feels a long time if you're just sitting there waiting. So what we've done is we've put some little comments and some little things, just sort of like the gaming industry does during loading screens, to come up, and they do change. So there's a bit, they're randomized. But again, that's part of our trying to make and humanize the AI. We definitely always make it clear that it is an AI doing this, but we wanted to make sure that, because a lot of our people our customers who use this actually are small business owners and entrepreneurs who may not necessarily feel comfortable with AI and technology, we wanted to make sure that it feels like an inviting environment for them. So here's the first start one. So this is where I mentioned about, for instance, Trey Stevens probably doesn't exist. And so you would get something similar and quote that in that particular case. And at any point, you can actually edit this and actually save it. And as you can also see, it also suggests some particular hashtags that you may actually choose to use as well.
Yeah, great.
And there's the next one. And you go through, and as you can see, it does write. It's quite indistinguishable for human. It's not necessary. It's definitely not going to be perfect when it comes out. Sometimes you'll get something closer to something that you can publish straight away. Sometimes you might get about 50–60% of the way. But what it is, it's about really curing that white page syndrome. And then you get a third one here as well. Now, one of the other things we can also do here is just publish it. So put a publish date. Because one of the other things we realize with people is that they sort of working out what content you need to actually create, or if you've got holes on where you're going to actually have postings, can be difficult to manage our content calendar. So we did it this way so that they can essentially do one day where they just do all of their content quickly, schedule it, and then they can use the calendar to actually know when to publish it. So it goes through. Now, at the point, I can just go back to the dashboard and it saves it automatically for me in the back end. So at all times, even if it's a copy, I will always have a copy of it, even if I haven't edited or made any changes. So now when I come down to here, I can pick up, say, cybersecurity one, go into that post, go down, copy to clipboard, okay, and then I can just go and paste it into LinkedIn, make any additional changes that I need to make, and I can publish it at that point. So that is our environment.
Wow.
And this calendar also allows you to just drag onto the calendar so that you can very visually see if you've got any holes, as well as the color coding tells you what kind of post they are, so that you can, even if you're not really big on planning, you can actually very quickly work out if you've got any days where you need to actually generate some content for it.
Wow, this is really cool. Wow,
So,
this can definitely increase a lot of productivity for you know, small to medium enterprises, not only SMEs, but also anybody who wanted to create content, wanted to share that. That includes all the marketing teams, of course. So what kind of early adopters are you seeing for your product?
I'll just stop share for a second. So what the early adopters, we're actually seeing a broad range. So for the shared environment, we actually have a number of internet marketers and people who have gone online already. But we're actually interestingly getting good traction in areas such as artist communities and makers, where the artists know that they have to promote their work online to be able to sell it, but are really not interested in actually having to spend huge amounts of time creating that content. They're resonating really well with this. So it's quite a for that side of it. We're also recently just gone out to, we're just opening up the government and big end of town. With my background in information management and scaling and large systems, we've built the system to be scalable. So what it means is also we can actually create an environment specifically for an individual organization and populate it, as I mentioned before, with content types specific to their particular. You saw about 10 different content types there. At the moment, we have about at least 60 to 70 in partial development at the back end, which means there's a range of different kinds of content, ranging from things like we're talking to events organizers, where we do all of their session blurbs. If you've ever been an event organizer and you get a blurb or a bio from a speaker about their session, sometimes they're a little dry and not particularly that interesting. As an event organizer, you can then put it through the AI and it will reword it for you and provide you a much more fresher style that will actually more be aligned with the brand of the particular event that you're actually doing. So it also can be used in that way to sort of, particularly when you're having to do the same thing quite often as well.
Wow, wow.
So,
that will be great. I think that might be very useful for me, actually. Sometimes I'm pretty dry, and it's very difficult, right, to put any spin on your words sometimes. So I think this will be very useful. It seems while we are talking, it seems that it could also be used for even you know, when you're putting big tenders and submissions, where you know, some of these people will have their own style, and then there might be 10 different people who are putting this together. There might be 10 different styles coming, maybe disconnected, coming together as a disconnected pieces. Maybe we can run through the AI and to mash it in a way that, hey, it flows through like one person is writing this.
That is absolutely something that could be explored. We'd have to do some testing on that one, so we haven't actually done that one particularly. But yeah, ultimately, as long as there is a structure to the content, which obviously there are with tender submissions, then yes, the AI, the GPT-3 and the underlying AI can actually reproduce that. The same as a human. Essentially, if you're given a few examples and you then use that as the basis of being able to write new content, it essentially uses the same thing. It does the same kind of idea.
Okay, great. We got our first question coming from Liam. Liam is saying, this is really cool. You mentioned before that the system passes the plagiarism test. How close do you think it is to getting a pass mark on university assignment?
Look, honestly, it actually could be very high, and they've done some tests in some circumstances, and there's a particular example where they OpenAI used the GPT-3 for the SATs over in the US for the college entrance exam, and it actually did better than the average college applicant. Wow. So yes, it absolutely can be used in a less than positive way, shall we say, which is part of the reason why OpenAI has strictly controls the access to it. We, as an organisation, having access to it, have to comply with a number of not regulations, but requirements to use it ethically. And so, and those that actually fit with our ethos anyway, that's not an issue. But one of the biggest concerns is that people using this particular type of technology unethically. So yeah.
No, great. And what kind of roadmap are we looking at going forward?
So some of the things for us that we've got in our roadmap, we're looking at integrating, being able to have images selected, so the AI being able to suggest images for your posts based on the content that of the post. We're looking at integrating with platforms like LinkedIn, so they actually post directly to the platforms. So there's a number of things like that. One of the other things that is pretty much consistent with the way we actually approach business, and how for anyone who is aware, knows me, because in Canberra, with having run an IT consulting company, I'm reasonably well known in that industry, knows that I'm very collaborative, and that's how I built my first company, Sensory7, and it's how we're building this company. It was always important. And one of the things that we are doing, and part of our roadmap, is working with other organizations that have technologies that will work synergistically as a overall. We sort of use the analogy that we are the content engine, and like the engine of a car, you need to have the whole car around it and build the car. So an example being, there's a called Vidnami, in another good Aussie startup based in Melbourne, where they actually create videos using AI. So if you actually go to our Facebook page, the videos on that Facebook page, the content was written in our AI. It was edited, published as an article, and then the article was then put into their software, and it was then actually created as a video was then created from that, 2 to 3 minute summary video, including captions, which we then were able to publish and promote the article. So this kind of integration of working with other platforms that have things that are part of the overall process of creating content is something that we're looking forward to as well as part of our roadmap.
Great, Suzette. Thank you very much for your time. And before we go, maybe one last question. What kind of customers are you looking at this point of time?
So how many customers are we?
What kind of customers you're looking at this stage?
So we've actually got two areas that we're looking at the moment. We have the ones who are the smaller end of town, like the ones that would like our shared hosting. We're actually just about to, so we're looking for customers, obviously, for the subscription model always, but we're particularly also looking for strategic partners that want to sell that. But one thing we're actually going to be doing very soon is actually offering a lifetime deal. So that will actually, as a once-off, to really kickstart our marketing and to kickstart our capital sort of situation. But the other thing also for the bigger end of town, or the medium to be and larger end of time, we're looking for proof of concepts. So if anyone's actually interested in being able to work with us to be sort of one of our first organizations to have a environment set up specifically for them, I'd be interested in anyone reaching out in either situation, either to become a partner of the shared platform, or to look at the organization, to be an organization for the proof of concept for the other one.
Great. Thank you very much, Suzette, for your time this morning. And I'm sure that there will be people who will get in touch with you, or they can reach out to Jeff Penrose or myself, and we are happy to connect the relevant people to you. Thank you very much for your time, and looking forward to be talking to you soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
Take care. See you then.
See ya. Bye.